Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo Podcast. I'm Joey Calvo. Please help support the podcast the best way possible. We do have a GoFundMe page, but I didn't post it in the video description. But if you go to GoFundMe, you can either search Joseph Calvo or Life with Joey Calvo. One of the two should connect it. But we also have a Patreon page now. So you can go to patreon.com/Life with Joey Calvo. And just bear with me one moment. Oh, it's right there. Okay, I did have it. Okay. All right. So today our guest is Belle Gayer. Or Gayer, sorry.
You were right the first time.
First time? Okay. She has a unique perspective. She's been a legal secretary, stage mom, and more. Recently working hard on charitable works. Conducting a Sabbath service for the past 20 years with her beloved at a local old age home and other charitable work. So, Belle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Okay, so Belle, please tell us, who is Belle?
Well, I'm a happy person. I've come to a wonderful place in my life, suffered through what just about everybody else suffers through, all of the things that happen to you. Because I'm 74 and my beloved and I have been together almost 54 years now. Next month, 54 years.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. And so the last 7 years, I've been sharing my insights and acquired knowledge because so many people today are in pain, heartbroken, don't know how to connect, have low self-esteem. And a lot of it is reflected in the fact that they can't find a relationship and they don't know where to look sometimes often. So I've been writing answers to those kinds of questions on Quora, and I'm distilling my first book, Are Relationships for Suckers? Which I thought was a provocative title to induce someone to pick it up because there are 100,000 books on relationships out there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically who I am right now. And I still do a lot of charitable works. We do a Sabbath service every Friday afternoon and have for the last 18 years, my husband and I.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned in your bio that you almost died at the age of 32. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. I had a tubal pregnancy that imploded and blew out a fallopian tube and an abdominal artery. And if I hadn't been upstairs having an ultrasound at the time, I would never have survived because within 15 minutes I was in surgery and 3/4 of my blood supply was in my stomach. So I have a sort of that obviously has colored my perspective about life.
Okay. All right. So you almost died at 32 from your pregnancy, and another thing you mentioned in your bio is about Tikkun Olam. Can you explain that?
Sure. Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam is healing the world or repairing the world. It's a Jewish imperative. It's the Torah, which is part of the Christian Old Testament. The Torah told us that our duty on earth is to do for others, to love the stranger, to help others, to help the poor and the needy and the widow and the orphan, and to leave gleanings of our fields and things like that. And since I have no fields, although I do give away my produce, some of my produce that I do grow, I felt that because I had gained so much knowledge from my own personal experience, that my Tikkun Olam, aside from the services we do on Friday afternoons and whatever other things we do at our temple, my contribution could be helping people who don't understand what love is all about, don't know how to foster relationships, can't seem to connect, are afraid today. People are terrified. I see a lot of people afraid to connect altogether, and to help them understand how loving yourself, how having healthy level of self-esteem is so important, because it means that you're going to attract and be attracted to the right people. And people don't seem to know that today.
Okay. All right. So She was sent questions in advance, and of course, for those that watch the podcast on YouTube, know that these questions are coming from our podcast number one fan, our number one supporter, and she's a real life superheroine, and her name is American Fox, and she has questions for our guest today. So the first question, and which we really didn't touch much about, is what's your best stage mom story?
My daughter, when she first started out, you have to have 3 appearances before you can join the Screen Actors Guild. So they have to be non-union. So she got a call for a non-union commercial for Showtime, which only showed her dancing on the feet of an actor who was playing her father, obviously. So we did that, and then we got a call a couple of weeks later that something was screwed up with the video, and they needed to reshoot it. Were we available? And I had a car accident, so I couldn't drive. I had a sprained foot that eliminated that possibility. But I said, you know what? We're not in this for the money. We're in it for the experience and to enjoy each other and to have fun. And so I actually had a car, rented a limo for the day. So we went up it was up in Burbank. And so we went up there, and the actor came over to us, was a different actor than the original one, but it didn't matter because it was just feet. So it didn't matter his face was never going to be in it anyway. Came over and introduced himself and said, I'm going to be, your daughter's dad. And I said, that's nice. Thank you. And he told me his name. And I said, would I know anything you've done? And he said, no, I don't think so. Anyway, later on, we finished the shoot, and I was ready to go home. And I lived in Orange County, so I was 75 miles away from home, and I wasn't going into Hollywood. But he came up to me and he said, "Oh, I see that you have a limo. Can you drop me off?" I said, "Sure." Because that's the kind of person that I am. So we did. And then when I got home, I said to my husband, we met this interesting guy, and he had an interesting name, but I wasn't familiar with it. So anyway, a few months later, I figured out who he was, and he had introduced himself as Willem. And I thought, did I hear him right? Was it William or Willem? And he goes, and I thought, oh, I heard Willem. And then I saw him in that big movie, was it Apocalypse Now or one of those war movies? And apparently his agent had said to him, you want to make a quick $300, go do the shoot. So I said, she got to work with Willem Dafoe, which was an interesting.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I kind of think when you said William, a war movie, I think that was the first William that came in my mind in reference to that.
Yeah.
All right. So the second question from American Fox is this. And I think this is kind of something personal in reference to her that she wanted to ask is, oh, no, this isn't it. Wrong question, folks. We'll get to that question. Sorry, I mixed the questions up in reference to that. I will get a lecture for this later on for that statement. What has been the feedback from your book?
Well, I've gotten... Since I don't have the book done yet, but the book is being distilled from, I have like about 26,000 answers on Quora.com. So I have had 33 plus million views of all of what I've written, of all my posts. I have about 16,000 followers, and I have had hundreds of thousands of compliments and upvotes and people saying thank you, and I've posted one of your lists on my refrigerator, and so it's been very, very positive. Even the name itself has provoked a lot of interest as well.
Okay, just to let you know, that 16,000 kind of went to 16,001 over the weekend.
Well, it grows probably about 5 or 6 every day.
I'm saying it because I did go. I was okay. Little investigation was done, quote unquote. So American Fox went on Quora and told me, "Oh, you got to check out her Quora." And I said, "Okay." And I actually have a Quora account myself. So I was like, oh, let me go on it and check this out. So I typed her name in, and, it was interesting enough that I followed her. So that's why I say she has 16,001 plus now, because I picked it up and followed it. So we can thank American Fox for me investigating Quora in reference to it.
Thank
So
you.
now we get to now I think this, yes, now this is the question that's personal to American Fox in reference to this. So question number 3 from American Fox. How do you and hubby resolve any differences in filling one another's needs?
I have to admit that when we first got married, we were both only just 21, and we got married 4 months after we met. So we still had a lot of learning about each other to do.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit that at the very beginning, I did most of it wrong. I was very sensitive, and
Okay.
I would argue a lot. And at some point early on, it came, and he was just very patient and tolerant and loving, crazy loving man that he is.
Okay.
So I was very lucky, because it came to me that, wait a minute, this is not really the best way to do things. Although makeup sex is fabulous, it's why create so much friction and stress and tension. So I started to get more intelligent about how I discuss things, and be more tolerant and patient, and less sensitive about, and also to eliminate the aggravations and annoyances and about the little things that everybody does differently from what you would expect or do yourself. So that's how, but now I would say that now what we do, or once I learned that basis, I would say how we deal with the stresses of life is with each other. We support each other. We're a team. We communicate everything. We communicate the most important things, and we communicate the least important things.
Okay.
Communication is the cornerstone of every single happy, successful, fulfilling relationship, long-term relationship, even short-term relationships, intimate ones, especially.
Okay. So kind of getting real deep into ourselves is what we should be communicating about. Okay.
Yes.
So being that we have stated that, and I'm going to follow up a little bit with this. You said a moment ago that in the beginning, being that you were both 21 when you first got married, you made some mistakes in how to fulfill each one other's needs. Can you describe a little bit of what type of mistakes you made?
I think that at the beginning, especially, because I had never had a long-term relationship before, and neither had he. You have to really get used to each other, and you have to learn how to put aside your own ego.
Okay.
I think that's the most important thing to know. To know that to think about when something comes up that's irritating, or a problem, or a stress, that it's you're a team. It's both of you working at it. It's not something you should and never to lay blame or be defensive when someone comes, when your loved one comes to you with a criticism, because or a point to be discussed.
Okay.
Because that only makes things worse. You have to be more objective about, and loving, and listen harder to what they have to say, and never interpret something the way you want to without making sure that that's really what they meant.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Because the reason why it's really, between American, with American Fox bringing this question up, is she's got something special she thinks about. Well, she doesn't think about it when she's out crime fighting, of course, but other times, when she's, not crime fighting, she does, have these thoughts, and she so that's why she asked them, because this person that she's interested in is really someone that's surprised her and really made her more interesting than she is. So that's kind of why she asked that question in reference to it. I mean, I've had my share of relationships, and I've always tried to figure out why, the other person cheated on me. But I was always saying it was my fault for it. But
no, it's always mutual. It's always mutual. It's something when people cheat, it's because, I mean, if it's not because of their own need for that more validation or their own mental health issues, it's because something is missing or wrong with the relationship at that moment.
Okay. So that's something I have to learn in the next relationship I have as well. Yeah. All right. So the fourth question from American Fox and final question is, and this is an interesting one. How do you keep your Rubenesque appearance?
Well, I never had a problem with it till I hit menopause. And after menopause, when I was in menopause, I was on some medications that opened up my eating habits, shall we say. And I haven't been able to take that weight off. But I'm very blessed because really I started out with the kind of shape that 34, 22, 34 kind of shape, or 36, 24, 36.
Yeah.
I started out with the basically, not everybody does. Some people have big butts and some people, just have straight bodies. But I started out with a nice figure. And I just think it's pretty much genetics where my fat goes.
Okay.
I do.
I will say, before I start this podcast, we're starting our quote unquote 7th season of the podcast. Before that, way before that, when I got married in 2001, I'm officially divorced as of 2025, with a separation period of 15 years. In between the 17 years. 17 years between from our marriage to the separation to the divorce to this. My ex-wife, and you said you and your hubby were married 4 months after you got into it. I kind of got you beat on this one. Ours was 3 in reference to it. But she was, and I'll probably regret myself saying this later on, but she was 5'4", 325. Okay. And my ex-father-in-law, God rest his soul, was like a chef at home when he made dinners. And one thing I will say, when I met my ex-wife, I was a skinflint, quote unquote. I was 5'4", about 120 at the time. When her and I separated in 2008, I ballooned a little bit to about 165. Now, in 2026, I ballooned even more. Much more. More than I ever thought I could ever be. So, yes, I am now over 240 pounds. So, and you know how you said about eating more? Guilty. But but that's also because, I was, and this is one thing I will say about relationships. Okay. And the self-esteem. I had none. Mine was destroyed, literally. So many times, from school to the relationships to the marriage. It was so destroyed that I was afraid I would never have another relationship again. And then I did have a little complicated relationship. And the person didn't look, well, no, correction. That person actually looked at the relationship, looked at me, didn't see the past, didn't see, well, no, question, let me correct that. Did see everything. I explained everything right off the bat in this relationship. I was actually still surprised over all those years that this person was still interested in me, even with all the flaws I had. But you
didn't feel worthy.
Bingo. And now there's another relationship in the works, quote unquote. That was the same way. Or is the same way, in a way. But this time, I actually, and I was going to therapy because I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression in 2009. And, when I went to the therapist, they were like, oh, what are you going to do about it? Well, it took me so long to actually say to myself, if they're asking me, what am I going to do about it? Why am I going to them?
For direction, though, for help finding the right course to answer the question.
Yeah, but they weren't giving me the direction I needed, is what I'm saying. They were asking me what I was going to do. Right. Well, if I knew what I was going to do, why did I bother going?
Yeah.
But then I did see a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist actually turned around, and this is when we had just started this podcast. Or actually, this podcast has been a little bit settled, quote unquote. And the therapist turned around and said, you know what? Your podcast is your therapy.
There you go.
And I said, what? And the first thing I was thinking is, does this psychiatrist have a screw loose somewhere that I don't know about? For me to even hear this? And so I'm like, okay. To realize, he was right. This podcast has been my therapy. But, and I have my little constructive criticism that comes around once in a blue moon in reference to this. I don't want to give away the suspect to that. American Fox. No. American Fox. And I'll get constructive criticism for this too. American Fox actually said, you have all these guests that come on your podcast, you listen to them, but you never follow what they suggest. Okay. So I turned around last summer and I stopped going to a psychologist because, like I was saying, asking me, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Well, I turned around and And that's what I literally was saying to myself. They're saying, what am I going to do? Why am I seeing them? So I stopped seeing them. And so I have been on a quote unquote self-administrative therapy. So one part of the therapy that I opened up was spiritual. And I have not gone to church since 2008. So I started going to church in the summer of 2025. And the first time I walked into the church, it was like all this pressure just opened wide up. I was like, wow. I was like, is this what I'm going to go through? So now when I go to church, that's my therapy session. Believe it or not, folks, when I go to church on Sunday, I call it a therapy session. I don't call it going to church for a service. I go to church for a therapy session. And ever since I started going to church, like I said, things opened up. And then all of a sudden, things did open up. Suggestions, well, not really suggestions, but ideas started coming through to the point, and this is why I said in the beginning about the Patreon page and, supporting this podcast, because this podcast has opportunities now, more opportunities than I ever thought. And one of those opportunities was being syndicated on radio and TV. And so I was blessed enough to even hear them. And I, ever since, like I said, actually, that part about the podcast, being syndicated, that started just around when I started going to church again. So, and from that, I started to look at myself a little bit better. I'm still struggling on that, folks, just to let you know. I still have that that low self-esteem too. Well, the way it's told is still none, but it has improved a little bit because I am a little bit more happier about what's going on. And as that's been happening, more things started to come around. And I'm just amazed that this new relationship is really been the rock to what's been going on now, because this rock literally opened up my eyes to see what's really going on. And because of that, these things are happening. So that person already knows about it.
When you have a positive perspective, that you become what you believe.
Yeah.
You keep a positive perspective instead of viewing things in a negative way. That's very important to self-esteem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's still things I question about everything, in reference to,
of course,
is this relationship going to be like the others? I still have that thought in my mind.
Sure.
In the back of my mind.
Sure.
But for once, I actually pushed it to the side and like, oh, this relationship's better than I thought, And that's I thought about with the one from, before this, to realize, that person still looks at me the same as if nothing happened in my life, which is amazing. And so it's like with this relationship, they just see that the no self-esteem. They pointed out all these things, and I'm like, you really still want to be with me through all this? And this person's like, yeah, I still want to be with you, even with these flaws. And I had to realize that, and I actually had to start telling myself, and I will actually thank Joel Osteen for this in reference to it. So if anybody who's a Joel Osteen fan that reaches out to Joel Osteen, okay, yes, his sermons really touched me. And I still have my naysayers, and for those naysayers, if you're going to say something now, be prepared to be blocked, because I don't take this shit. Pardon my language, but I don't take the shit anymore. Okay, if you're going to be negative about, give me a negative comment, don't even put it on, because you will either be reported or you will be blocked, or actually both, in reference to that. So, definitely, that was the new perspective I'm looking at. And since then, I like I said, I call it an emotional roller coaster.
Life is a roller coaster.
Yeah. I have my mood swings where I'm happy as could be one day, and as soon, and I mean as soon as somebody says something negative that I've done, boom, I'm right back to wanting to hide and isolate.
That's human nature. We all have a dual nature, like yin and yang, and also the Jewish philosophy is that all human beings have a dual nature, a yetzer hara, which is bad or evil thoughts and inclinations, and a yetzer hatov, which are good thoughts and inclinations. And a yetzer hara can be very overwhelming. That's our biggest ego part. And sometimes a little bit of ego is okay and even important. But the idea is that it can be very overwhelming, your negative part, the negative part of your nature, as opposed to the positive part.
Yep.
And the thing is, though, that once you recognize that, you can just change the direction of your thoughts. You are in control of your own mind. Right. So you can just say, you know what? I'm not perfect, but you know what? So no one else is either. And I do my best, and I'm a good person at heart, and I deserve respect for that. And I'm going to activate my Yetzer HaTov, my good inclinations and thoughts. Yeah. I am not going to listen to that nonsense anymore. And I block people too for the same things. I mean, I don't mind being criticized, but it's the attitude behind it that's important.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. And believe it or not, within this new relationship, actually between the two relationships I have had, or in, both of them, like you just said, see all the good in me and do remind me of why they are interested in me.
Absolutely.
And like I said, they bring out the negative, but they're saying, listen, we believe in you. We know who you really are. You're this person who's caring, understanding, and wants to be happy. And you have gone through all this hell that damaged you. And you're just afraid that we are going to be the same way. And we're not.
Well, and it's so strong for you.
Oh yeah. Oh, believe me, I do too. Like I said, it surprised me because I didn't think that these two relationships were gonna be like that. I was thinking, because of one thing, they're like, you know what? You did this, bye. Not interested because something in the future in reference to that. But they said, no, we see the flaws. We're going to bring out the flaws. And we're going to, like you said, work together on the flaws.
Absolutely.
Belle, I wanted to cry when I heard that. There's times I still want to cry because of that. Because, like I said, I would not think that these relationships were going to do this to me. And I mean, like I said, they opened up my eyes. They got me to see so much. And then all of a sudden, based from that, all this is happening and more.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, would never believe in myself, never trust in myself, never had faith in myself until these two relationships opened up my eyes. And then when I started going to church, the spiritual eyes opened up.
That's important because prayer is like is a kind of form of meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and your spirituality is essential to your happiness in life. Your experience of it, what you do for others, what you do for yourself, very, very important. Spirituality.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, I've been learning that, and like it got to, well, actually, there was a downfall. And how you explained how you almost died at the age of 32. Well, last month, because at this point I've been unemployed since February of 2025. I was working at the Amazon, and what happened was in 2024, I had a meniscus tear in my right knee. So I had to stop working for a little bit and was on disability and so on. And, my knee started to get better and I started going back to work. Well, I started picking up hours to quote unquote catch up what I missed. And as I was picking up so many hours, I was burning myself out. So they terminated me. They didn't terminate me for the work. They terminated me for the attendance. So, and then like I said, I've been unemployed since then. And last month, even through the spiritual wake-up call, and I've been saying this for the past month, even my year-end podcast, I almost wanted to commit suicide last month. Literally. One day, I was like, I'm done. I had it with myself. And so I turned around, I got on the bus, and I went to Penn's Landing, which is, because I live in Philadelphia. So Penn's Landing is right along the Delaware River that separates Philadelphia. Well, it doesn't separate, but it's the edge of Philadelphia, then the Delaware River, and then Camden, New Jersey is on the other side. So I went to Penn's Landing to confront it. And so while I was there, I was just looking at the river like, I'm done. I'm not getting anywhere. This is, I'm not going to be able to seek employment because nobody wanted to hire me. Because with this podcast, I was doing it 3-4 times a week. So and most jobs went during the day. And I go to the doctors during the day in the mornings. So the days I had available, I suggested, but they weren't looking for that. They wanted somebody during the week, almost full time. And I also at the same time, because of my knees, I was afraid I couldn't be able to handle it. The longevity and stuff. I might get to the point where I have to sit down and so on. So I get the Penn's Landing. I'm thinking about all of that. And then all of a sudden, there's this guy that's walking as I'm walking along too. And he jumps to the edge, not physically, but he like slides to the edge of there's a, of course, something to separate from you falling and going into the river. So he slides across it, and it scared the shit out of me. Right there and then. Just scares the shit out of me because I was afraid he was going to like slide into the water. He grabs the edge of the barrier to be able to see, what was, where the river was and all that. But that point just scared the shit out of me. So I sat down and I had to talk with God right there and then. And he started to tell me, listen, you have people that care about you, that want you around.
Yeah.
You have a podcast that somewhat wants you around. And I'm like, okay. And I got up. I came back home. But when I got back home, one of my former classmates, and I will say is once in a while a naysayer. Texted me. They call me. I said no. Because I'm thinking, they heard about me, wanting to end my life. And I literally said no. And person texts me back, says, it's important. I said, no, it's not. It's not important at all. Then the person texts me back, one of our classmates died. And I was like, holy shit. And then when the person told me who it was, my jaw just dropped. And I was in the supermarket. I went to the supermarket after when I came home. And I was like, oh my God, this. And especially what I was going through, within the past hour before that. Yeah. I was almost about to say goodbye to the world myself to find out this person did. And all of a sudden, I was like, this person sacrificed themselves and spared me. And to this day, I call that former classmate an angel. Well, always been an angel when we were in school. But it was like now, to this day, she really is the angel that's looking over us. And after I was mentioned this, first words were, do not post it on social media. I said, okay. And that's usually my hardest struggle. Is as soon as something's told to me, it's like, I got to say something. Actually, for the first time, I actually kept my cool on it until social media came up on it. So I went over and gave my condolences. As I was giving my condolences, other classmates were coming to me saying, what the fuck happened? And pardon my language, folks. I don't edit these, just to let you know. So deal with it. So they were coming to me on Messenger saying, what happened? What happened? I'm like, I don't know. And then I turned around and I said, I was almost about to end my life because being unemployed and the depression going on in me, and from all this happening and stuff, and all of a sudden, this person passes away. And there's a little story to that this person that passed away had a lot more going on than I did. I mean, she had a family. She had a son. And what happened was her house caught on fire, destroyed the whole house. And she had been going through a lot because of that. And so that kind of was one of the factors that led to her passing away. And her supporters were there. I mean, I even stepped in and say, whatever. I was kind of saying the same thing. Seek what you need to seek. And she actually had posted something about it. And she wound up removing it. And then after that, that was the end. So they were coming to me and asking me what, and I'm like, I don't know. But I knew about what I just said about before she passed. And then one of my former classmates actually turned around and literally said this to me. And this is why I consider her an angel to me. She literally said that she spoke a lot about you. I was like, what? She always mentions you in conversation. Belle, I wanted to cry even more. Because I never thought, I would never think that somebody else would have such real thought about you as a person.
Well, feelings for you. It's a friendship feelings.
Yeah.
That's a kind of love.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I started to feel that love a little bit more, but I just didn't think it really was there, because, I mean, and even during the time that I've been unemployed, I've had supports and stuff coming through. And I'm thankful to them too, because, I didn't think that this was going to happen. And like I said, when this classmate told me that this person that passed always not always, but mentions me, like I said, I just could not believe it. I could not believe through everything that there was someone even back then that really was a true support. And to this day, I call that person an angel, because I know that person's looking over me saying, hey, what you're seeing right now is the best of your life. I didn't see that with me. And it wasn't because of my son or my friends. It was because of what was happening within me. And because of that, like I'm saying now, I'm seeing the better within me. I'm seeing why this person would talk about me in conversation. And the thing is, we kind of were close. We weren't, I mean, did I want to date this person? Yes, I actually did. But she didn't see that. She saw what the second relationship saw in the beginning and what the first one has been doing all along. And so now I see it and I'm like, okay. And because of that, I made my adjustments and I'm seeing the better of me. So, if I have my downfalls, like I say, it's questioning about something within the relationship, not as much me. And like I said, if it wasn't for Joel Osteen and even Dr. Charles Stanley, I forgot to mention him too, because the one classmate suggested in reference for me to watch this Charles Stanley one. As I was watching the Charles Stanley one, I saw a Joel Osteen one for the same type topic in reference to it. Same type of sermon, but the way Joel puts his sermon just really opened it up and said, okay, this is how it goes. And because of that is where I see, where everything's at to this day. And sometimes to the point where I'm like, want to isolate myself, I literally have to go back to that sermon by Joel Osteen to fix what's going on. And as soon as I hear it again, I'm right back to where I was at. And then there's another sermon with Joel that even brought it out more. And the two sermons I will say in reference to Joel is peace of yourself and the lost you. And when I heard both these sermons together, I was like, he's right. God's looking for that me who is caring, loving, supporting, there when they need them, and just, that. And since then, I look at that and I'm like, this is the person they want. This is the person I got to bring out. I can't be that person who wants to isolate and, leave everybody alone and, be like a Grinch. Quote unquote.
Well, that's hard. It's hard to do, though. You have to be willing to bring yourself out and put yourself out in the world. That's why a lot of my suggestions are that, get out in the world, volunteer, join groups, garden in a community garden, just expand your universe and start giving more to others, because that feeds you. Actually, it actually benefits you more than it benefits them.
Okay. Well, the only thing is I'm kind of still on the borderline of something like that, only because it's just my comfortability in reference to it. It's not like what God wants me to do. God actually wants me to continue this podcast. That's what, folks, you really want to know what God's calling for me is? This is it right here. This podcast is his version of saying, this is your calling. So like you're saying about volunteering and stuff, and how it's benefiting me, this is what God was saying to me. And because of that, this new relationship took a surprise turn. And not only surprised me, but made it better. And so, I couldn't be any more happier for that. So we're coming up towards the hour. So, Belle, how can people reach out to you in reference to, relationship questions, etc., and when this book comes out?
Okay, well, I'm going to post when the book is out. We're getting ready to finish distilling it. It'll be a couple more months probably, and then I'm going to self-publish and put it out there.
Okay.
But they can look for me on Quora, Quora.com, Quora.com, and they can ask. I answer most questions actually every day. I answer a lot of questions every day, and so I welcome questions. And also, they can look at my past content and see if they have any questions. They can just do a little search on my profile page.
Okay. Okay. So before we even do that, I actually have to apologize to American Fox for a minute. I forgot to promote her. So in reference to American Fox, and again, thank you for suggesting to me to go on Quora in reference to Belle. So you can reach her on X. Follow her on X at American Fox 4 or on Instagram at American Fox 12018. All right. So let's get her. She's had her time, and believe me, she'll be thanking me later for it. So go to Quora.com and search Belle, and look at all the relationship suggestions she puts out. And like I said, if it wasn't for American Fox telling me that, I wouldn't have got on it myself. And in reference to the one question that American Fox had, I could see why she asked that question. So when the book does come out, Belle, you're welcome to come back on here.
Thank you.
Matter of fact, one thing that was, I think I don't know if I even suggested it to you. If this event did what I call a meet and greet, where all the supporters of the podcast, or even fans that didn't even know about the podcast or knew about you in reference to Quora, came out to like Atlantic City and met you, and you signed autographs and so on, or sold, or even if your book was out by then, sold your book and stuff. Would that be something interesting to you?
Sure, but I don't know exactly when that's when I'm going to have a book, and I'm actually I've put off this at least 5 years doing the book, finishing the book, because I really, as much as I want to help people, and I know that what I have to say helps a lot of people, I kind of don't really want to be a celebrity, and it looks like that's where it's headed. So, but I'd have to consider it. Yeah, that'd be
okay. Okay. Well, I mean, when that happens, I reach out to you on that.
Thank you.
In reference to it. I mean, the opportunity is not like right away. It might be like closer to this. Matter of fact, my thoughts, if my projections were to go the way, and that's another thing with me, folks. I do so many projections that if they're not going the right way, I actually get pissed off at me for it. So, but the one projection for this idea was like Memorial Day weekend, in reference to that. So do I think that projection could happen? Yes, because this podcast is looking for sponsors. So, but definitely, Belle, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story and sharing your expertise about relationships and stuff. And again, thank you, American Fox, for the suggestion about Quora and Belle in reference to that. And I thank everybody who watched this podcast and had to deal with me on my story again. But thank you very much for watching the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. God bless you all.
And you as well.